Hello, my friends. If you're here, then you watched episode 1 and you're ready to continue. If you have not watched episode 1, I invite you to go down into the description of this video and you'll find a link for episode 1. This is a tutorial on how to create a budget using Google Sheets. Okay, let's get into it. We are going to start with the easy stuff. So I'm going to have us start down here in, just like the credit card payments, there's a change that I would like to make. So this setup that I have right now is based on the idea that you use a credit card, but you do not currently have a credit card debt, like an outstanding debt. However, for most Americans, that's not the case. Most Americans have a credit card debt. In fact, the average household American credit card debt is $8,000. And the average American household has, I think it's 9, last time I checked, 9 credit cards. So I'm assuming that a lot of you who are watching this have credit card debt. So here's what I want to do. Here in my credit card payments cell, I want to unmerge. So right now, N and O are currently merged. I'm going to just click the merge cell again, and it's going to unmerge it. Okay, and you're going to need to do the same thing to these other two as well, so that we have those columns separated. And I'm going to change amount to paid and change that to remaining. Now what you might need to do is you might need to include multiple slots for different credit cards. I mean, again, if you have 4 different credit cards you need to be making payments on each one of those, then probably a better use of this space than date would be card. And you know, this is your Visa number 1 and this is your MasterCard number 2 and whatever, and you list out all of those cards that you have debts on, and then how much you paid would go in this column, and then how much debt is remaining would go in that column. Now the intention here is that you are trying to pay down your credit cards to a balance of 0. If you like to run a revolving credit card debt, then there's really not an easy way to create just a simple little box that's going to track all that. The way that interest piles up on top of itself with you making a payment and then continuing to draw debt and making payments and drawing debt, there's nothing that I can do here in Google Sheets for you that's going to make that work. The only way this is going to work for you is if you're actually trying to pay down your debt. So here's what I would recommend. If you have credit card debt, have a column for the card, have a column for how much you've paid this month, whatever month you're working in, have a column for how much of that debt is remaining, and then have a transaction number for each payment that you make so as to give you proof of that payment. That's what I would recommend. If you have credit card debt and you're not concerned about getting out of credit card debt, I'm very sorry for you. I hope you learn better quickly. So if you have credit card debt, this is how I'd recommend you change it. If you don't have credit card debt, but you use a credit card, this is a thing that my wife and I did for several years, where we used a credit card for the loyalty rewards or the redemption rewards or whatever. And so we would run the credit card every month, but then at the beginning of the next month, we would immediately pay off the entire balance. If you do something like that, then that original setup that we had will work. And I just want to show you a little trick here. Another shortcut key if you're not aware of it. It's Control or Command Z or Z. So if I just press that multiple times, I'm going to go back to right where we started. I didn't have to go back and change things manually. So again, if you run a credit card but you don't have credit card debt, then you could keep this just the way that it's laid out. Again, this is where you're going to have to do what you think is best for you and your family. But essentially, this table is completely finished. There's really nothing else to go in here. We've got things formatted already. So I'm just going to change its color to kind of let me know that I'm done with it, that it's finished, ready to go. So I'm just going to show you how to do a little bit of the beautification, if you will, of this, and then we're going to move on. And we're not going to spend much more time on that. So if you want to change the cell's background color, you're just going to come up here to this little paint bucket where it says fill color. And you get to pick any color you want. You can have whatever color scheme you want, or if you're a minimalist, you want just black and white, knock yourself out. So let's go with a nice lavender, and also what I'm going to do is I'm going to bold both the title and the column headers, and you can just come up here and do bold. Now you'll notice right next to the word bold, it says Control plus B. That's giving you the shortcut. So you can do Control or Command B on your keyboard, and that'll automatically bold those. So I like to do that, personal preference, right? So now that's formatted, and I am going to walk away from that. That is finished. This is a little table that is run completely manually by you. If you don't touch this ever again, then it'll sit there just like that. Basically the same thing with this table. It is currently functional the way it is. There's no formulas that we need to create in here. So again, I'm just going to format it to just kind of let me know that I'm done with it. And just to kind of explain how this works, this is where you would list anytime you're taking out cash, whether you're taking cash from swiping your debit card somewhere, or you are cashing a check that someone gave you, or you're withdrawing money from an ATM. You put down who did it, when did it happen, how much was taken, and why. Just a little note there. Why do I do this? Why do we spend our time doing this? Because an effective budget is not just this is how much money I have and this is how I'm going to spend it. Truly taking control of your finances is about understanding your finances, understanding what everything is doing, where your money is going. If you don't take control of your money, it will leave you. Having a record of what your money is doing at any given point in time is sound financial practice in the home. So that's why I've created these two boxes. Functionally, to the body of the budget, they have no bearing. They have no effect on the rest of the program. However, this is more than just a budget. This is a home financial plan. This is designed to cover all aspects of your money. Okay, let's come up here to the assets table. The idea here is that you keep track of all of your assets. So this would be, you keep track of how much money you have in your checking account, how much you have in your savings account, how much cash you have on you, if there's any significant sum of cash that you're carrying in your wallet. For example, my wife and I use cash when we buy groceries because it's a good way to make sure we don't spend too much money on groceries with impulse buys. And so that's a good way for us to list how much cash we have on hand, because that's part of our assets. That's how much money we have. And then you can also list any other types of accounts that you have. So if you have any mutual funds, or if you have a 401k through your work, right, you can list those. And obviously you're going to need to adjust this according to your life. If you don't have a 401k, then don't put that there. The idea again is that this table tracks your assets. And then how you use this table is the first day of the month, you come in here and you write in however much money you have in each of these asset groups. So I just made up some numbers here for Hazel and Gideon. Let's just say that these are the numbers that they have. In this case, since we're in January, that means that they have $4,100 in their checking account. They have $2,000 in their savings. They have $360 in cash somewhere in the house probably. They have $4,800 in their mutual funds, and they have $509 in their 401k. That's all the money that they have essentially at the start of the month of January. And then what happens is when they revisit this budget on the 1st of February, which they do need to do, then they're going to type in all those numbers again on the first day of February and essentially the end of January. That one day is not going to make that big of a difference probably. But again, you need to set up your own system, whatever works best for you. When I do this, I just use the first day of February for the last day of January because there's usually not that much of a difference. And you put those numbers in here, so let's make up some numbers. And so now we've made up some numbers, so we could take a look at these manually, but here is going to be our first formula. So a formula in Microsoft Excel or Google Sheets is essentially it's programming. You're computer programming. You are telling the computer, if this is the case of something, then I want you to do that. We are going to create lots more formulas, so I'm going to teach you how to create a formula. The most simple of formulas that you can make in Google Sheets or Excel is the addition or subtraction equations. So click on cell P33. What you're going to do is the first thing you're going to type is equals. Now when you type equals into a cell, it is telling the program that you are inserting a function. Basically what you're saying to the computer is, hey, see this cell? I want this cell to equal ... I want this cell to equal something, and now you have to tell it what you want it to equal. So in this case, we want it to equal this number minus this number. Now, you and I could just figure that out. We could bust out our phone, run the calculator, and punch it in manually. But that takes time, and month after month after month, that's a lot of time to waste. There's a better way. So you're going to type equal that cell. Now you're going to click on it. And if you click on it, you'll notice that it says O33. Why does it say O33? O33. So now you are telling this cell, again, we are in P33 right now. We are telling P33 that we want it to equal O33. And if we were to press enter, that becomes 4556. Now watch this. If I change this number to 5,000, that number changes to 5,000. But this isn't the formula that we want. So again, I'm going to click on this, and I could double click, and that would pull up the formula again. Or you'll notice up here, it's showing the formula. It's showing 4556 right here, but the actual formula of the cell is up there. So we can come up here, or we can double click on there. Either way is the same. And we've got O33, and we're going to go minus. So we're saying whatever O33 is, take that number and subtract from it this number, N33. N33, press enter. Voila. From now until the end of time, or until we change the formula, P33 will always be O33 minus N33. And the purpose for doing this, at the end of the month, when Gideon and Hazel sit down and go through their budget together, which they do need to do every month, then they can see, oh hey, we actually have more money in our checking account than we did to start with. So balance just shows the difference between where we started and where we ended. A positive number is obviously good. That means we've made money, right? Now we need to create the exact same formula for these other two cells. So for this one, I want you to do the same thing. Just equals that minus that. Press enter. Okay, so it's really simple that way. Now there's a faster way that we can do these last three. Click on this cell on P34 and put your cursor in the bottom right corner of the blue, and you'll see it that we get that little skinny plus symbol. Click and drag that down over the other three cells. And you will see that it automatically filled in those formulas. You want to make sure that they did it right. Click on the cell, look up here and look at the formula. O35 minus N35. O35 minus N35. Did it right. What about this one? O36 minus N36. So the computer tries really hard to know what you want it to do, and for the most part it does a really good job. So you can just drag that down. It populates the cells with the formula that it assumes you've done previously. We had two examples here. We populated it down. It was smart enough to figure out what we wanted. Now we want to be able to assess this information to see whether we made money or lost money over the course of the month, how our finances are stacking from the beginning to the end. Here in the approximate total monetary assets, we are going to create another formula. So you're just going to click equals, and you'll notice actually down here that they're creating a suggestion. Please enter the selected suggestions, a sum of P33 through P37, and you'll see this orange box. That's the computer saying, hey, is this what you're trying to do? This looks like what you might be trying to do. P33 through P37 are the exact cells that we were just working with. And that is the exact formula that I was going to have us put in. And the computer is smart enough to say, hey, is this what you want? But I'm actually going to tell that to go away, because I want you to see how it's done manually, because sometimes the computer is going to guess wrong as to what you want. If you type sum and then an open parentheses, what you're telling the computer to do is, I want to sum or add a series of values. And when I say values, I mean the content of a series of cells. Again, each one of these little boxes is a cell. The value is whatever is inside of that cell. So you're telling it, I want to sum whatever value are in the following cells, and I'm just going to click and drag. And now it's saying you want to sum P33 through O37, or sorry, Q37. Close parentheses, press enter. And now it's just going to add all of these numbers together and give me a total. So what this tells me now is that Gideon and Hazel have $408 more at the end of the month than they did at the beginning of the month. But that doesn't tell us everything that I think we want to know, so we're going to make another change. Right now this says total monetary assets. 408 is not our total monetary assets. So I'll tell you what, delete that, unmerge it, and let's just change this y-axis to totals. And then what we're going to do is we're going to turn N38 into a sum of what we had at the start of the month. And at this point, you can grab that by the bottom right corner, drag it over, and it'll propagate that same formula over to the next column. And now down here at the bottom, we have a series of totals. We have how much money or how many assets did we have at the beginning of the month, what were our assets at the end of the month, and what our gain or loss was. So this is a nice table that allows you to just kind of see an overarching overall view of how your money is moving from month beginning to month end. And also this is a good introduction to some of the most basic formula that we're going to be using throughout the rest of this project. Okay, and I formatted it just a little bit to make it stand out and show that it was finished. So that is the end of that chart. Let's move up. The monthly bills chart, I think I told you in the first video that it was a purely manual system where you were going to have to go in and check, just manually check if they've been accomplished. Since doing that video, I've thought of another way that this might be more automated, so we're going to come back to this one later. Let's take a look at our comprehensive income tracker here. The beneficiary column is all about who is getting paid. So the first paycheck might go to Gideon, the next paycheck might go to Hazel, and then maybe Gideon will get another one from another source, and so forth. The source column is all about who's giving you the money. So if Gideon is a high school teacher or something, then his source is the high school. If Hazel is a writer, then her source is the books that she's producing, and so forth and so on. So the source is where is the money coming from. The amount obviously is a monetary figure. Received is the date that the paycheck came in. And then tithing, Gideon and Hazel personally follow the Old Testament and giving 1/10 of their goods. So they choose to do that. Obviously, if that's not your thing, you don't include it. They use this as a way of tracking to make sure that they've done what they want to do. If they have paid their tithing on the thing, they write yes. If they have not, then they write no. And then when Hazel does get around to paying her tithing, then she can come back in and write yes. So it's just a way for her to keep track of whether she's done that or not. Now what we're going to do down here is we're going to use this as a way to track who made how much. You don't have to do this, especially if there's some level of competition between you and your spouse, or some level of, shall we say, discord on maybe one person not making as much money as they should. If you're married, you know what I'm talking about probably, and if not, awesome. This is a way that you can kind of track that. So now this is a different type of formula. This is what we're going to call a sum if function. Here's how you're going to type it. Equals sum if. Now what a sum if function is it tells the computer, I want you to add certain information only under the certain circumstances. So first off, it's asking for what is the range in which we are looking for a specific circumstance, a criterion. So we're actually going to look through the names. So I'm telling the computer, check through column M and look for what? So we're going to press comma, and then it's going to ask for the criterion. What are we looking for? What is the criteria of performing this addition, this sum? The criterion is we're looking for the name Gideon. So because we're looking for a specific word, we need to put in quotation marks, Gideon, close quotation marks, and then press comma. So it is now telling the computer, we're going to look through this column for the word Gideon. And now it's asking, okay, so if we happen to find the word Gideon in that column, what numbers are we adding? Where are we finding these numbers? And you're going to say, this column, close parentheses. Again, what you're telling the computer is, look in this column, comma, for the name Gideon in this column, comma, and if you find it, add a corresponding number from this column. Press enter and you'll see that it pops up with 2400. This is not a total between these two numbers because that would be 2622. It is only adding in the number that corresponds with Gideon. So if I come back in here and type another 1000, you'll notice that jumps up to 34. If I delete both of these, the number drops down to 0 because the word Gideon has gone away. This SUMIF function is paramount to the rest of the budget that we're making. So if what I just did confused the H out of you, then I would recommend you rewatch it or hop on YouTube and try to find maybe somebody else who might be able to explain it a little bit better. So in this cell, we're going to do the exact same thing for Hazel that we just did for Gideon, but the copy and paste method that you might be thinking would work will not work. Let me show you. If you click on this, you come up here, it says M10 through M17, which is over here, and O10 through O17, which is right here. If you click on that cell and copy it, right click copy or Control C, and then come over here and paste it, click on it and look up here at the formula. It's O10, O17, and Q10 and Q17. This is my O, this is my Q. Not only did we move the destination of this formula over, by moving it over 2 cells, it moved over the criteria 2 cells. That doesn't work for us. So what you can do though, so that you don't have to retype that all, is come back here, come up to the formula bar, and copy the formula bar. Highlight it all, Control C, press Escape so that you clear away, you're not a part of that anymore. Now come over here to Hazel, come up to the formula bar, press Paste, press Enter. Now you'll notice it's 3400 because we're still talking about Gideon. So replace Gideon with Hazel. And now we have 222. Now down here, last month, this is a record that I like to have. It's going to be completely manual. There's not going to be a formula in here. It's an opportunity for me to look back and see how much money I made on the previous month and compare it to how much I've made this month to see if I've made more or less, really is all I use it for. That's going to be a currency entry, but we'll get to that later on. And then total down here, this is going to be total income. So it's just going to be another sum function. Equals, but instead of doing a click and drag, instead of doing that, we are going to just select the cells we want to add together. This one and that one. Oh wait, why didn't that work? This one and that one is not adding them together. So what you need to do is you select the one and then you just manually type in a plus symbol and that one. Press enter, and now it's added the 2 numbers together. Another way to do this in case other people are earning money or there's a time where it's both Gideon and Hazel that earn the money. If Gideon and Hazel both earn $444, that won't be included because this is only looking for Gideon and Hazel numbers. So you could change this to be a sum of this whole column. And that's probably what I would recommend. Okay, so that's it for that table. Go ahead and format it up however you'd like. Okay, so the last thing we're going to do here in episode 2 is we're going to format this table up here at the top. The last month row is another one of those manual rows. It's the row that you are going to enter that information into manually. I'll show you the specifics of that in a future episode as to why I like to do that and how you would do that. Allotment, this row is also a manual one, but let me tell you how this one works. As I mentioned in the first video, it's about the envelope method, if you will. How much money are you going to spend on rent this month? You should know what that's going to be more often than not. So if you know that rent is $725, then you're allotting $725 to be spent towards rent this month. So what needs to happen is that the first day of the month, Gideon and Hazel need to sit down together and go through this budget together. It should be a team effort because they're both on the same team and they both should be wanting the same things financially. A house divided against itself cannot stand, so husband and wife should be working together on this. Hopefully there will be no discord here. So husband and wife are going to decide obviously $725 towards rent, and PYF, pay yourself first. How much money are Gideon and Hazel, how much money are you and your spouse going to be setting aside for savings? That's what I mean by pay yourself first. How much of your money that you receive from your jobs are you going to pay yourself with savings and investments and retirement and all that kind of stuff? That's where Gideon and Hazel have to decide, and that's where you and your spouse have to decide how much is that number going to be. I personally would recommend 10%. It's what a lot of professionals recommend. 10% of your paycheck you pay yourself. So how much is that going to be? Well, you just come over here and look at your last month. So let's say last month Gideon and Hazel made $3,000, then this PYF should be $300, 10%. If you can do more than 10%, I'd recommend you do. But if you can't, 10% is the minimum. How much money are you guys going to spend on groceries? You need to talk that out and decide. Just winging it, we'll buy what we need when we need it, is not a sound financial practice. You've got to have a limit, you've got to have a budget, and when that's empty, you're done. As I said earlier, my wife and I use the envelope method. Literally, we do not print our money. We take our money out of the ATM, and however much we decided that we're going to use on groceries that month, that money goes in an envelope. And when we go shopping, we leave our credit card behind, and we only take the cash envelope. And then when that envelope is empty, we're done. We do not buy any more groceries the rest of the month. That's a really good way to keep from overspending. So you guys have to, in your family, decide how much you're going to spend on groceries. And you just go down the list. How much you're going to spend on gas. Tithing, depending on what your percentage is. Gideon and Hazel do 10% because that's what the Old Testament talks about. So that would be another $300 there. Any other donations you're doing? Are you guys doing a date night? I'd recommend it at least once a month, right? What sort of health bills? Are you going to therapy? Are you going to physical therapy? Do you have prescriptions that you're getting? Blah, blah, blah. This is a conversation. And until you get into the rhythm of it, it can be a long conversation, especially if you and your spouse aren't on the same page, which means that it is a very, very necessary conversation so that you guys get on the same page. Talk this all out and decide how much money that you're going to put into each of these. Okay, so what I've done is I've filled out just some hypothetical numbers here for this couple, and you can see that the total here is $2,740. By the way, I just did a simple sum function. I just pressed equals, sum, and I dragged all those across, just like I showed you to do down here. So you can see that they're summing about $2,740. Now their last income was $3,000. So we're assuming that they're going to have about that much for this month as well, which means they have roughly $260 left in their budget, right? If they're going to be getting $3,000 and they're only planning on spending $2,740, then where does the extra $260 go? You might be inclined to just say, oh, well, that means we get to just do whatever we want with it. Yeah, or better yet, you give it a home. See, this process to allotting money into different locations until you've spent everything is called zero-based budgeting. It's the idea that you spend every dollar on paper before you ever get it. Every dollar is given a home before you ever actually give that money to somebody else. This is a really good way to make sure that you do not overspend, and that's why I've set it up this way. You, on the first day of the month, you sit down and you go through this process and you allocate where all of your money for the month is going to go. So if you still have $260 remaining, maybe you stick an extra $60 into your miscellaneous section, and then you still have $200. Maybe you decide to put a little bit extra into savings. And now you're at $3,000. Now you have spent every dollar that you're going to be getting this month, and you're done. There is no more question as to where your money is going to go and how you're going to pay for things. It's all allocated. Now, just a quick refresher on the whole credit card discussion we had at the beginning. If you are trying to pay down your credit card debts, you should have a column in here for debts, right? Have a column in here for debts and how much money you're going to be putting into that debt to pay it down as fast as you possibly can. Again, it's your life. You get to do what you want. I'm just telling you what's the smart decision. Now for the running total row, I'm just going to punch in a bunch of zeros for now. We are going to deal with this next episode. The last thing that we're going to do is we are going to put in a formula on this bottom row for balance left. All this is going to be is a simple subtraction equation. Click on C6, press equals, allotment, minus running total, enter. All that's going to do is tell you how much money do you have left in that envelope. Since we haven't spent any money on rent, we still have $725 left in the envelope. You're going to do the same thing on all of these, but instead of having to create each equation manually, you can just grab this by the bottom right corner and drag it all the way across. And now you have a way to see how much money you have left in each envelope. Just to prove that it's working, if you come up here to rent and were to type 500, then it reduces that to 225. If I were to type 6,500, then it reduces it to a negative number, and that lets you know that you have overspent. Okay, that's it for this episode. I'll see you in episode 3, where we will get into the comprehensive expense tracker and tie this whole page together. Oh my gosh.